Hello and welcome back to Tampa Real Talk with me, Gavin Frater. If you've watched the first episode, hopefully you're not too turned off and you'll last for the whole of this one. Last week or in episode one, we talked about how your agent may be impacting your ability to sell your home. Right now, I want to pivot to the other side of the transaction and talk about the truth about buying your first home in Tampa right now. Now, look, it's not a difficult marketplace if you have the funding behind you. However, as generations will tell you, it's become harder and harder to make that first step on the property ladder compared to years gone by. Now, look, I'm not about to side with millennials and zennials and Gen A. I remember having to live with friends and share a house in order to be able to save to be able to buy my first home. So it's not a challenge that is unrealistic to people. I think what we find with current buyers, especially first-time home buyers, is they'd much rather just buy their first home immediately rather than kind of doing the group thing and sharing with people beforehand. So what we're going to cover in this one is the myth right now is that people keep telling buyers to wait for rates to drop, wait for prices to come down, wait for the perfect moment. I'm going to tell you that's absolute bollocks. And while it might be good intentioned or well intentioned, it might be the most expensive advice you ever take from anybody. Look, prices don't drop unless you have a crash. And I guarantee you right now, no crash is coming. So how can you make the best move into the Tampa area right now and avoid the mistakes that a lot of people are making? Find out this and more in this week's episode of Tampa Real Talk. So let's look at the reality, guys. Okay, look. Right now, the average sale price in the greater Tampa area is a shade over $410,000. But you know what? We're talking first-time home buyers, so let's not assume that they have all that money. Although if they do, fantastic, it's a great job. And let's drop $100,000. Let's go down to three, and let's see what's available between $300,000 and $400,000. Now, we're looking greater Tampa area. I'm not just looking inside Tampa itself. So if you do a search right now in the counties in and around Tampa, so you're looking at Hillsborough County, Polk, Pinellas, and Manatee. If you're looking at single family homes between 300,000 and 400,000, right now you have about 4,700 homes to choose from. Now, if your realtor sends you 47 homes and says, good luck, have at it, fire them. Straight away, just fire them. That's the worst send of a dead you could imagine. But let's take a look at what $300,000 to $400,000 is going to get you. And it will put you pretty much everywhere in the greater Tampa area. Look, it's probably not going to get you a single family home on Davis Island. But let's be honest, that's a lot of money to get on Davis Island, and we'll get you there sooner or later. But I mean, looking at the market right now, you can pick up single family homes in Clearwater or St. Pete. You can be in downtown, you can be in South Tampa, you can be in town and country. You can be further east and you can come out to Riverview or to Plant City. Whatever lifestyle you want to have as a first-time home buyer, whatever it is that's important to you about your day-to-day, whether it's commuting, whether it's I want a downtown area, I need to be close to bars and the library, it's all available right here in the greater Tampa area for between $300,000 and $400,000. Now, everybody has individual tastes, and some of those tastes are going to push you higher. But there is no reason why you can't find a delightful home in and around the Tampa area for under $400,000. And right now, given that it's probably Easter weekend, well, I know it's Easter weekend because I had an editing error and I deleted a file, so I'm recording this on Good Friday. But I know right now that companies like D.R. Horton, Lennar, West Bay are all having sales because the economy is so goosed at the moment. They want to make sure that their inventory is not sitting, their holding costs are minimized. So they're doing a 4.99% interest rate if you buy between now and the 15th, I think it was. They're paying your closing costs. So it's really easy to get into a home for under $400,000, even as a new build. Now, these new builds are a little bit further out of town. They're in Zephyr Hills, they're in Wesley Chapel, they're down in Parish or out in Plant City. But as you see, they're commutable into Tampa if that's where you're working. But look, there's lots of availability. And I will be showing you pictures up here, but I don't have any listings in that price range at the moment. Not only that, I haven't sought out prior permission to advertise any of my colleagues' listings and put it here. So we're going to have to imagine that there would have been an iPad screen that like in the first episode where I would have put listings in. But yeah, now look, given the market where it stands right now, you can be wherever you want to be, but understand that you might not always have showroom ready, HGTV, made for Magnolia kind of finishes. But if you're prepared to put the work in, you're always going to have equity long term. I was always a fan of buying the worst house in the best neighborhood to allow me to be able to do that house up and grow income and equity. It's what I did with my last New Jersey home. We picked up a $350,000 home in a town that averages $900,000. And we were able to sell at a significant profit. So it was a great opportunity many years ago. I'm an old man now. Don't let this beard trick you. So look, there's plenty to buy. But the three things that are kind of killing buyer confidence right now, we really need to have to call bollocks on. So let's call bollocks on the biggest myth in real estate. You need 20% to buy a home. 20% down is what you need. So if you're looking to buy this mythical 300 to 400,000, that's $60 to $80,000 you need in your bank. Yep, let's call bollocks because it's bollocks. If you happen to be a serving member or former serving member in the US military and you qualify for a VA loan, you don't need to put a penny down. Now, look, I would always recommend that money be held in escrow during the under contract process, just so that your buyer knows you've got skin in the game. But you do not need to put anything down. That's one of the beautiful things about the VA loan system. Don't qualify for VA loan? You can get a conventional loan down at 3-5%. You'll have to pay them down, but if you're buying that $300,000 home and you're putting 5% down, you only need $15,000. And then look at the VA loan. The VA loan is specifically designed for lower income people to qualify for the loan. It's 3.5% down payment, which on a $300,000 loan is $10,500, and on a $400,000 loan, you're looking at $14,000. So whether you go VA, conventional, or FHA, you can be in a home with as little savings as far as down payment is concerned of $15,000. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and talk about having an extra $15,000 I can just put down in a home, but you can also take a loan out of your own 401k in order to pay for your down payment and closing costs. Just keep that in mind. So the idea, this dated, outlandish idea that you need 20% down to buy a house, we need to call bollocks. We're gonna scrap that. If you can afford the monthly payments, get into a house as soon as you can. Yeah, that's I can't speak about that enough. When you see, and look, there's lots of people online complain about, oh, I've got a $3,000 mortgage payment and $2,700 that went to interest. You're lending a significant amount of sum over 30 years. And yeah, interest starts high and equity and paying off your principal starts low, but it seesaws. So by the last few months, it's almost all equity or principal and virtually no interest. But that's your amortization schedule. We'll talk about that on a different chat. The other one, and it's probably the most relevant one right now because it impacts spending power so significantly, is I need to wait for the rates to drop. We need to have a look and see it when it hits 5 or see it when it sees 5.5. And look, I can understand that your buying power and your monthly payment will vary significantly. If you look at beginning of March, rates were on the drop. We were close to a 5.9% interest rate. Even some of my older listings were having a significant amount of showings because confidence was back in the market. Then the government decided to take military action against the Middle East. And as a result, we're currently sitting here on Good Friday with rates of 6.5%. Now, the difference on a monthly payment of that 0.5% is huge. So if you can afford a $300,000 to $400,000 loan at 5.9 or 6%, you might not be able to afford that same house at the 6.5%. So the rate argument, I will say, is one that I understand. It's one that I sympathize with. I'm not the realtor who's going to tell you to marry the mortgage and date the rate because I think it's a horseshit thing. Understand your financial options. That's what I would say. Realize that if you decide to make this purchase now, that there very much will likely be an opportunity to refinance that loan down the line at a lower rate. But be comfortable with where the rate is now, so that if that rate drop doesn't come, you are not going to be foobarred by a high rate and living on ramen and ice cube sandwiches. And then I think I have the three big kind of myths or excuses that I hear. It's I'm not ready. Like, when in life are we ready for anything? Um, I wasn't ready to fall in love. I wasn't ready to get into real estate. I wasn't ready to have kids. They're mostly okay. I'm reasonably good at real estate. I've raised a couple of fairly normal human beings. Um, and I've been with my current wife for 20 years. So you don't have to be ready. Look at the finances. If you're spending $3,000 a month on a plush rental, and some of these luxury rentals around the area are 3,000 plus, then you can afford a $350,000, $400,000 home. The only difference is you're building equity in that property rather than adding equity to the landlord's bottom line. And it's the douchiest new realtor thing to say is that you're always paying a mortgage, it's just not always yours. And I think it is douchey, but it's true. Right now, I'm down here, I'll be coming up for 3 years, and we still haven't worked out where we want to buy. So my wife and I just renewed our lease. Do we want to rent? No, we really don't. We look at the fact that we've spent, it'll be $36,000 probably by the time this lease ends. And we realize that's a significant portion of down payment or equity that we would have built. So we'd much rather buy something, but we're not sure where we want to be. We love so many different parts of Tampa for different reasons. We're just trying to figure that out. And the problem for us is, I want to be by the water. She wants land so she can have 100 dogs. And where do you kind of go from there? So when you're thinking about why you want to buy a house, make sure that you're not being misled or overly cautious about the circumstances allowing you to buy that house. I'll give you an example. So about 2 years ago, I met the most amazing bartender at a bar in Ybor, my favorite bar. I'm not going to mention the name of the bar because that may give away the client identity, and I haven't got her permission to do that. But we spoke. They thought about becoming a realtor, but decided that rather than do that, they'd buy the house and work with me. Now, we looked for about 3 months, and then personal circumstances were such that she was like, okay, look, I just need to take a break. I can't do this. I got to sort some things out. And I regretfully moved on and started looking with other people. A year later, she comes back to me. Hey, look, I really know what I want. I know where I want to be. Can you help me? Not a problem. Be my absolute pleasure. So we saw about 5 homes in 2 different builder developments. The builder gave her I think it was a 4.25 at the time rate, covered her closing costs. And yeah, look, builders aren't giving you this money because they're desperate. They're giving it to you because they know they're going to get it back in other places. But we'll come back to new builds on a completely different show. Fast forward 6 weeks from when we signed the contract, and she was able to buy her first home. Not only that, but she was able to give her children a bedroom of their own for their first time. So when you don't think you're ready, when the right deal comes and the right property comes up, sometimes it's just a case of, look, hang on to something. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but it's going to be worthwhile. And when I see the pictures on my Facebook of this family, with the kids seeing their room painted for the first time, and just the joy that they have a dog. So it's like all this joy that comes from them not being 100% ready, but trusting me with the process to allow them to find the right house. It's why I do it. I mean, look, I love the money, I'm not going to lie. Um, but the joy that I get from seeing buyers settled in a home far outweighs any of the negatives. Um, so don't wait. That's the one thing I said. There's a statistic out there that if buyers in 1981 had waited for rates to drop when they were at 11%, they would have waited until 1997. So don't wait. If you can make it work, even if you're not living in something as luxurious as you are at the moment as a rental, if you can transfer that rental money into building your own equity, 100% of the time, do it. Do it, do it, do it. Okay, we're back. So this is a section that we're going to do as a repeat throughout the podcast. And I haven't come up with a clever or witty name for it right now. So for right now, let's just call it from the other side of the table. The things that I want you to know that as a realtor, as a real estate agent, as someone who's been through this process many, many times, already knows. Um, we didn't do it in the first episode. I wanted to kind of just get through that first episode. I think there was some nerves from me if you've seen the episode. But this one I definitely think is well worth an opportunity because it gives me a chance. I don't want to say gives you a reality check, but knowing how I like to cut through the bullshit, here we go. So, from the other side of the table, the thing that I want first-time home buyers to understand is feedback is everything. Absolutely blinking everything. Without it, you might as well just kind of print out every home you've ever liked, stick it up on your bedroom wall, and chuck darts blindfolded. Because without it, we're never going to improve as agents on what you want to see. I've had clients, especially when I was a newer agent, um, clients who saw 20, 30, 40, 50 homes. And as a newer agent, I was just happy to be out showing homes. What I don't realize or didn't at the time is I've got to pay gas to take people to see these 40 or 50 homes. I've got to not be doing something different while I'm showing these homes. So if I'm not getting feedback these days, it makes my job so much more difficult. Look, I don't care what the feedback is. Ideally, with the way that we work with the CRM that we have, we use a solution here in the Greater Tampa area called Stellar MLS. And one of the things that you can do as a buyer is provide real-time feedback on listings through the Stellar MLS portal that we send you. So working with a young couple, they were able to tell me why they didn't like this house, even though it ticked all of the boxes that they'd given me to tick. So I was able to go, okay, well, they don't like this style of kitchen. Let's start pre-screening all the homes that I send out because I always pre-screen a home before it goes out to you. You'll never receive something through the MLS that I don't already know about. Secondly, now that I know what I'm pre-screening, now that I know what I'm keeping out, tell me the things that you do like. And so these guys were fantastic at giving me really good feedback. Hey, look, this looks like the 1970s threw up in it, and it's a bit too much of a project for us to want to buy. Great. Don't want to go anything too dated. Hey, we love this open concept kitchen that leads into a dining room. We can really see ourselves holding events and parties and gatherings here. This is the type of thing we want. If you're not talking with your agent and having those conversations, and I'm talking about before you even go to see a house, you're going to waste a lot of time seeing homes that don't match your needs. So be open, be honest, and tell them before you go. Look, and look, if you say, "Yeah, this house looks really good. I quite like the look of this. I quite like the way the bathroom and the primary suite is. I quite like the fact that it's not overly big." And then we get there, and it's like, "Oh my God, this is tiny," and they must have used some weird fish angle, fish eye hook, whatever it's called, lens to be able to make it look big. That's not wasted time because I got an idea of what you like from the picture. I can use what you told me to find houses that don't have shitty pictures. And we mentioned shitty pictures in episode 1. Now, when it comes to going to see homes, this is the one time that I will use the brothers or the industry's kind of thing. I will name the home. but I'm not going to give it a cute and adorable name like the Violet Cottage or the Snow Press, whatever the fuck it is. Excuse my language. I'm going to give it douchey names. So, do you like the Stinky Kitchen House? Or did you like the Rotting Wallpaper House? Like, I want to make it memorable. I'm never going to say, did you like 123 Banana Street? Did you like 456 Pineapple Grove? I want you to remember it because we're going to discuss it afterwards. Never discuss a home with your agent at the home. Don't talk shit about a house when you're there. So many homes have cameras right now that that's not a really good time for feedback. But chat shit before you go see the next house. Look, honesty is 100% the only way forward for any home buyer. I don't care whether you've done this 10 times before or it's your first time. If you're not honest with the real estate professional you're working with, you're asking us to do our job with our hands tied behind our back and blindfolded. So whether you're working with me and we're making it fun, or you're working with one of the 30, 40,000 licensed agents in the greater Tampa area, but mainly with me. Feedback. I promise you, it will pay off. Because instead of now having to see 35, 40 homes, I'm showing you maybe 5 or 6. For instances, last year, I showed more than 4 before a purchase was made. So understand that we have some amazing filters that we can use to find you the right house. You just have to describe what you're looking for so we know what filters to use. And that is this week's From the Other Side of the Table. I promise you in the future we'll have a better phrase for it. Okay, so we're wrapping up now. Look, trying to record these and kind of they'll get better as we go on, and the frameworks will kind of get better. But the first 2 episodes are now recorded. For home buyers, we told you today that don't worry about your 20%. They don't have to have it to be able to purchase. I didn't mention, though, that if you are an active or past military member and you qualify for a VA loan, you don't have to put any money down to purchase. It's always good to have skin in the game from a seller's perspective, but one of the great things the VA program does for our service members is it allows them to buy without anything down. So that's a great program I should have mentioned earlier. Additionally, we talked about budgeting and understanding your buy power versus what you actually want to pay on your mortgage each month. The last thing you want to do is create in a situation where you're house rich and you have this stunning home, but you're eating ramen noodles and filtered water through the fridge because you can't afford to live properly. And ultimately, what's the point of a beautiful house if you have to skimp on the everyday things to be able to afford it? Next week, we're going to segue into an area that makes agents uncomfortable and most agents are clueless about. And we're talking about pre-foreclosure and what it actually means and who it happens to and why the story's being told almost exclusively wrong and what agents do that is so abhorrent when working with these types of people. Look, we all have a story. We all have a tale to tell. There is no reason why anybody should try and benefit from manipulating that situation. So stay tuned for that one. That one will come out next week, the 9th at 4 p.m. But for now, if you're looking to buy in the greater Tampa area and you have questions, hit me up in the comments section. I will answer all questions. I might have to ask you if you have representation right now, and so I can be a little bit more generic. But there is no question I will not answer, and I will not give you an honest answer to. So for this week, thank you very much for watching Tampa Real Talk with me, Gavin Frater. Check out my Instagram at gingerrealtor.com for shorts and bits and pieces. But guys, we'll see you all next week.